Word. All right, and this is what we're going to review today. This will correspond when we get these lessons plans. They're going to pop up. They're going to correspond per the week. So this is the week of 8/31. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some very basic Revit information for those of you who haven't worked with Revit before. And then we're going to discuss how we begin this project, which will involve linking a Revit file. We're going to discuss MEP Revit overview. Some of the information that we're going to be going over today is different than our regular Revit class, and then we're going to begin the model. This will give you a basic breakdown of how you're going to construct the ductwork. First, you'll link Revit, and then to create the ductwork, you'll follow this information right here, but we'll go into that in more depth shortly. All right, let me close this. All right, in Canvas, this new mod is now available. It's mod 2 HVAC ductwork that you should see in your on your Canvas. For this assignment, you're going to be using the room calculations that you created already to create the ductwork for the first and second floors of the given model. This same model is the one that you had the floor plans for earlier. The actual MEP model is right here. You're going to be using that. You don't have to create the Revit model. You're just going to be creating the ductwork, which is nice. And then once you're finished, you can upload the Revit file when complete. This is going to be due on September 6th. We actually don't have class a week from today on September 7th, but just turn it in on September 6th so I have time to grade that and get that back to you and review it for our next class, our following class, which would be September 9th. Yeah. So once we go over today's lesson and show you how to run the ductwork and things like that, then I'll turn everything over to you so you can work on the assignment. On Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we're not going to have, we will have class, but we're not going to be going over anything new. I give you a whole week. It just turns out to be a week and a half this time that you get to work on it because we don't have class next Monday. But on Wednesday, we will have class, and I'll be here to answer any questions, go over any problems that you're having, and we can work together to try and get everything working out for your ductwork and stuff like that. So class tonight, I'll post the class recording. You'll go over, you'll work on everything yourself. If you get everything knocked out and done, that's great. If you don't show up to class on Wednesday, that's fine. It's not going to count against you. But the Wednesday class, we're not going to go over anything new. It's just going to be strictly to answer questions and work with people that are having some issues or anything like that. So this class works a lot different than the other Revit class. So it's a little bit more independent work on here. All right, also for the mod that's due, I have a rubric that's on here, so you can read through the rubric to see how you will be graded on here. And that's pretty much about it. So what we need to do to go ahead and get started today, you can just, since it's a recording, you can just go ahead and watch, take notes, and then practice it later while you can watch the recording. But it is good just to kind of watch things, to go through them and kind of learn them while you're absorbing stuff. All right, so first thing you'd want to do when you get in here in your Mod 2 HVAC ductwork is let's go ahead and just open up this MEP project. And this is what it's going to look like when you open it up. Let me turn the video off. It may be a little distracting. Okay. So you'll notice that this, if we look at the different floor plans in here, So level 1 floor plan. This is basically the floor plan that we had that you use your calculations off of. They're very similar, the same dimensions and things like that. I didn't go into quite as much exact detail on here, but the dimensions and everything are the same, and it's basically the same floor plan that we had to start there. So since the floor plan is the same and we have our 3D building, which is pretty nice, you can just kind of get a look at it, and we want to just kind of go through that and see. Now, those of you who are familiar with the regular Revit, you'll notice that in my project browser, which is one of the main driving points of MEP, of Revit, you'll notice that that is still an architectural template that we started with. We just have our floor plans, ceiling plans, and things like that. So the gist of MEP is we always are going to be starting with an architectural template. You'll have an architectural template that is going to be brought into an MEP template. But we do that because the point is being that the architect will develop this model, and then they'll send it to an MEP specialist in order to create the mechanical in this instance. So let's just take a look at a couple other things on here. If I take the front of this, and this is actually going to give you some extra steps, even people in my other Revit class. There's ways that we can hide different aspects of our building so we can take a look at things that are going on inside the building. So in order to hide this piece of the building so I can see it and kind of explain to things with you a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this wall, this front wall, come down here to my temporary hide isolate, looks like a little pair of glasses, and I'm going to hit hide elements. And notice that just hides that front wall for me. And now I can look inside my building. I'm going to change the visual styles, which is down here. Right now it sets a hidden line, and I'm going to change this to consistent color. And you can notice you can see a bunch of different things on here when that's set there. So what we want to pay attention to is the difference between obviously the first floor and the second floor. Here we have our slab. First floor is here. If we click on this little piece right here, we'll notice in our properties, it'll tell you what it is, and that is the ceiling. This ceiling system is set to 8 feet. If we click on this piece right here, this is the flooring for the second floor, and it is set to level 2, but it's offset a foot. And if we take a look at the space between the second floor and the first floor ceiling, this is what's known as the plenum, what we had talked about before in the information that you had read. And if we go to our Modify tab, actually, if we go to our Annotate tab, no. Oh, man. Let's go to, I'm going to go to a north elevation. And I'm going to do the same thing here so I can get a measurement. So since I was in 3D before, and it won't allow me to take a measurement in that spot, but if I'm in an elevation which doesn't rotate, I can go ahead and take a measurement at that time. Okay, go away machine. All right, so I'm going to go to my Modify tab. I'm going to go to my Measure tool, and I'm going to go from the top above my ceiling to the bottom of this floor. And that measurement is 2 foot 4 3/4 inches. So that is actually how big our plenum is in order to create our HVAC system between our first and our second floors. A good way to think of this would be if we were in classroom at Delgado and you have this acoustical ceiling tile, it's a drop ceiling. So that's the space between the second floor and the first floor where that mechanical system is going to run. For our second floor, obviously that's going to run above this ceiling for the second floor, but you're going to have a lot more space for the second floor ceiling. It's still going to be the same thickness as the first floor ceiling and air conditioning unit, but it just is a little bit easier to run than the that middle one, because you see you have a very tight space constriction between these two spaces. Is everything making sense so far? Okay, if anything doesn't, if you need something repeated, just let me know. Okay, so now we've kind of had a little breakdown about what's going on with this architectural project within here. We want to go ahead, what I want you to do next is you're going to need to save this to a file on wherever you want to save your files. So you're going to do save as project. And let's see. And I'm just going to rename this one to my MEP, my mechanical template, mechanical example 1. So this way the actual Revit file is saved on your computer or on your flash drive, however you want to use it. So when that's saved, we want to go into and open a new Revit template. So here we're going to go to File tab up here. You're going to go to New Project. And under this section right here, we're going to open the mechanical template. Now you'll notice the difference between the project browsers when we open the new mechanical template. I'll give that a second. So in our mechanical template, you'll notice that we have all these new features in our project browser. We have our HVAC. It's giving us our floor plans for our mechanical 1 and 2, our ceiling plans, 3D views, elevations, and we also have plumbing. We'll go ahead and just close the plumbing for now. We're not going to be touching that today, and we'll be working strictly in our HVAC. So I'm going to go ahead and close this old Revit file that I have open, because the next thing I want to do is I want to insert that new file that I created into my mechanical template. With my mechanical template open, you can refer back to here. What we're going to do is link the Revit file at this point. So in order to link that file, we're going to go into their Insert tab, to the Link panel, and the Link Revit tool. So we click on the Link Revit tool, and you just find where you just saved that imported file. I did mechanical example 1. And that's going to process, and that's going to bring that right into your model for you. So it brought the original architectural model into the mechanical template. You'll notice it's a bit light here. It's a little bit hard to read sometimes. So what we can do to change that is we can go to our, getting in the way. Okay, Manage tab. So in the Manage tab, go to Additional Settings tool right here. Click on that and scroll down to Halftone Underlay. Under Halftone Underlay, we can brighten it up, say like 70, whatever percent you want, and change the line weight to 1 and hit OK. And it just darkened that up a little bit for us. That's a little bit easier to read. If you wanted to make it darker, you can do that as well. There we go. All right. So what we want to do first before we do anything else is we want to work in the level that our ceiling plans, our ceiling mechanical equipment will be going into. Obviously, if there's going to be going into the plenum, the space between the ceiling and the second floor, we want to work in a ceiling plan. So we want to work in ceiling plan mechanical 1. So double click on that to make that accurate, to make that active. If it's bold, you'll know that that is active. Also, when you do that, you'll notice they have a lot of patterns here. This is actually, if you click on it, It's not going to let me do it. This is actually the acoustical ceiling tile that's showing it. It's not letting me click on it here because this is still the material. This is part of the reason that these things are two separate items. We have the architectural file, which we cannot touch or change in mechanical template, which is nice. So that way, if you send your architectural work off to the guy who does your MEP stuff, they can't change that. Or move anything around, which is very nice. They're just going to be able to add in the new mechanical information. So what you want to do is you want to access the calculations that you used before. Now, everybody's calculations were slightly different, but it didn't make a lot of change as far as the vent size, duct sizes. Everybody did really well with that. So if you haven't finished that, please get that turned in as soon as possible. But you're going to access this information in order to find out what vent size you're going to use, if you've determined the number of vents, and also duct sizes as well. So for this room 101, it was recommended to have 8-inch vent sizes and 8 by 8-inch duct sizes. So keep that in mind when we come back here.
Is that the right calculations you want us to use?
Some people's are a little different. This is you can use the calculations that you created if they're a little off than that, but that's the one that we're going to use just for the example in class today.
Okay, I kind of rounded mine up, some of them, so.
Yeah, that's fine. You can round them up. I mean, everybody's are off just a little bit, just depending on how you did the math or how you did the rounding, or what vent size you chose to use. So the vent size from this example isn't necessarily correct, but you can use the one that you created, that you came up with. Okay. And if we refer back to our...
So there's like no wrong answer then?
It's not necessarily a wrong or a right answer on here, as long as you are within the guidelines that we had set up in that file, you are correct.
Okay.
If somebody put like a 6-inch vent on here, then that would be outside the guidelines and that would be incorrect. But on a lot of these, there was a variety of different sizes that you could choose from, and it was up to you to which size you wanted to choose it to be, as long as it was within the guidelines. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is we're going to go ahead and install our mechanical equipment. And remember, this room right here is where the HVAC room is. So we're going to have all our floor level equipment here. Today we're just kind of working up a little bit higher. So the first thing you want to do is go to your Systems tab. And we're going to go over here with the mechanical equipment. So if we click on mechanical equipment, we're going to come back to our properties and our type selector. And we're going to be working with a size 4. And I'm picking this one because these larger ones, this person decided to work with an 8-inch vent. So I'm going to start off with an 8-inch. You can select any one of these that you want to use depending on the size that you did, but we'll go ahead and just use this size 4 8-inch for now. When you make that active, if we come over here, you see we cannot see it. It's just kind of like it's not showing up. That's because we have to create an offset from the hosted level. So if we want this to come in above our ceiling, we want to set this at 8 foot 2 inches, and then you'll see how it's going to drop in where we need it to now. So I'm going to just pick over here to insert this, and I'll explain why in a second. Let me zoom in on that. So this is our air handling unit that we just dropped in, and if I click on that, I want you to notice a couple of things on here. We have an out vent here and 2 in vents. These are where the ductwork are going to run off when we start creating our ducts. And this one you can see is set to 18 inches, and this one is 8 inches. And then we have another one over here, which would be 14. So the ones that we are going to be using specifically on here are this 8-inch vent that we created, and then also this 8-inch vent, which is like more for the receiving air as well. So next thing, since we have this air handling unit in, we want to go ahead and drop in our air terminals, our air vents. This will also correspond to the size that you picked. So pick on this one. Notice the supply diffuser, it defaults to a 12 by 12. At this point, we can hit edit type, and we can change the width and height of our ducts by changing the spacing here. So diffuser width, we'll make that 8 inches and 8, oops, inches. And we also have to offset that, and we know the ceiling height is 8. And then we'll come in with our duct. I'll just drop one here, and I'll drop one here. And I notice when they come in, we know that they're for the outgoing air because of the direction of the arrows, also the direction of the vent itself. This is marked as an X. That way we know it's outgoing air. Oh, so we don't necessarily need all these arrows that are on. So you can click on these, make them active, and we can turn off the arrows just to clean up the drawing a little bit. So with those active, we come back to properties, and we can turn those arrows off, and it just makes it a lot cleaner. So what I do next, you can run all your it's probably best to do like all of your air terminals at one time, and then come back and do your duct work. But I'm just going to do it like this to show you, and then we'll go back and do some more. So click on the air handling unit. Oh, come on, this is supposed to be fixed. All right, if this signs off, well, it's going to sign off because we're going to have longer than 10 minutes, and then we'll have to sign back on. I'll just send you the sign-on information. I thought this was fixed. So we're going to come over here to this part where the air out is, and you're just going to drag that. And notice when you do that, it comes up to the type of ducts. So here we can drop down.
Shouldn't that be in the other room?
I'm sorry?
Isn't the air handler in 107?
The air hand, yeah, it's right here. It's above air. It's in the ceiling right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So here we can, it defaults to a round duct right here. So we're going to do the drop down, and we're going to change this to a radius elbows. And here we can change the size of our ductwork. Let me make sure what size our ductwork was. It was 8 by 8. Great. If there was a change in ductwork, we can change it here. So it's still set to 8 by 8. And we'll just continue this on. To here. I'm going to pull this one back to here. The difference between the ductworks when we've selected them is the determining factor is these joints. It's always best to have a smooth joint corner where it comes like this. If it comes to like a point, to more of a point, it's the air doesn't flow as well, and there's all sorts of aerodynamics that are involved in that. whoever you end up working for will tell you which type of duct that they would want to use, but we default to this one just because it is a more air efficient duct work to use. And then for this one over here, we want to go ahead and do another duct. That should still be the one that you're using. And we're going to bring that one up towards this here. And we're just going to end it right here. At this point, after you've run your duct work, you're going to run some flex ducts to finish that off. Flex ducts are right here, so you'll use System tab, Flex ducts, and you're going to start from the center of the air terminals, drag that back here. And the same with this one. These are 12-inch diameter, so we're going to change that to an 8-inch to match the size of our ductwork. Delete that. So once again, flex ducts, I'm going to change that to 8 inches and run from the center of the air terminal here, center of the air terminal, to the end of this ductwork here. And let's go to 3D and see how that looks. So you can see it automatically drops that in with the air terminals. And also all the ductwork, you can see how it's more of a flex duct at this point. They use the flex duct just to finish it off. You can make these a little bit closer sometimes. Sometimes if it's too close, the diagram of the flex duct doesn't show really well. But as you play with it, it's easy to fix. We'll go over a couple different examples. So you can see how that is running above the ceiling. And it comes in as a, actually let me change this visual style to wireframe. Gets a little busy here, but at least you can see how it runs within the building itself, which is pretty nice. And then let's also jump to a elevation view. And here you can see, let's change this to a hidden line view as well. Wireframe. Actually, when I change it to wireframe, does anybody, I know it's awkward, but does anybody see anything weird that's going on here? Well, if we look really closely, and actually if I type, if I hide these walls, if I type visibility graphics, which is a VV, this is my advanced stuff, I can hide my walls and it'll be a little bit easier to see. So one of the problems here that we can see now very clearly is here is my ceiling and here is my ductwork. So I actually need my ductwork to go up a little bit higher. Does anybody have any idea how we can do that?
Your offset?
Exactly. Great, great. So when we brought this in before, it was brought in at 8 foot and is set, and it's defaulting to a middle elevation. So what we can do is change some of these offsets that are located over here in our ductwork in our properties. So here our bottom elevation is set to 710. So when it says middle justification, it's going right off that middle line. So let's change the vertical justification to bottom. And we're going to change the bottom elevation from here to 8'2". Oops. So it wants everything to move up first before we do that. So I'm going to go back to mechanical 1. Tuning for 6. And I'm going to change all my dimensions to 8'2". bottom elevation. This one as well. Go back to 3D. And when we change that to 8'2", now we can see that the ductwork is actually running above the ceiling. Let's go back to our elevation that we looked at before. This is still a little bit below. So. And there we go. So it definitely is one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're running that, and make sure that is definitely above the ceiling to start with. And as you can see, all you have to do is double check that through our through your elevations, and you can adjust that to the height it needs to be at that time. So I'm going to go back to ceiling mechanical 1, and I'm just going to add in the rest of the air terminals and more duct work. I'll just do a couple more, and then we'll show the return air as well. So the outflow air is always going to show up in blue, and the inflow air will always show up in magenta. So let's add a couple more ducts on here. So for the next room 102, this person recommends 12 inches and also a vent size of 6. Vent number of 6, sorry. So let's add some air terminals. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the arrows now. And I'm just going to space these evenly throughout the room. And it looks like the video may stop, and then we'll go ahead and restart class after that.